Most gardeners who watch this video have already lost a plant this season. They watered it, they fed it, they moved it into better light, and it died anyway. And right now, sitting in your bathroom cabinet is the exact thing that would have saved it. It costs $1.50. You bought it to clean a wound, and nobody in the gardening world wants you to know it works better than products costing 20 times as much. I'm going to show you 9 ways to use it today. But first, I need to show you something that will completely change how you think about your soil. Because the real problem in most struggling gardens isn't what's above the soil. It's what's happening underneath it right now while you're watching this. Section 1. What hydrogen peroxide actually is. The science that makes this work. Standard drugstore hydrogen peroxide, the brown bottle marked 3%, is water with one extra oxygen atom attached. That's it, H2O2. That one extra atom is the entire story. When hydrogen peroxide contacts organic material, a fungal cell wall, a pest larva, a harmful bacterium, it releases that oxygen atom in a burst. It oxidizes what it touches. It destroys pathogens on contact. And this is the part that no chemical company wants you sitting with. It breaks down completely into water and oxygen. No residue, no toxic buildup, no chemical runoff, just water and air. That's why this works completely differently from anything they sell you on a shelf. Now let's get into the 9 uses and stay through all of them, because use number 5 is the one most gardeners never even consider, and it might be the most valuable thing I show you today. Section 2. Use number 1. Treating and preventing root rot. This alone is worth watching the entire video. That's because root rot is already destroying the root system underground weeks before you see a single symptom above the soil line. Root rot is caused by anaerobic conditions. When soil stays wet too long from overwatering, poor drainage, or compacted clay, oxygen gets pushed out. And when oxygen leaves, the harmful anaerobic fungi move in. Phytophthora, Pythium, Fusarium. They attack the roots and destroy the plant's ability to take up water, which is why a plant with severe root rot will actually wilt and look thirsty even when the soil is completely soaked. Here's what hydrogen peroxide does that nothing else can. When you drench the soil with a diluted solution, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, that free radical oxygen atom kills the anaerobic pathogens on contact. It's lethal to organisms that cannot tolerate oxygen. Second, it re-aerates the soil. It pushes oxygen back into the root zone, and oxygen is exactly what a struggling root system needs to recover. The mix: 4 tablespoons of standard 3% hydrogen peroxide per 1 liter of water. Apply when the top layer of soil has dried slightly. Let the soil dry completely before the next watering. I'll walk you through the full rescue protocol for severe root rot later in this video. Do not skip it.
This is why the garden center never tells you about it. When you see powdery mildew on your squash, rust on your roses, early blight on tomatoes, your instinct is to drive to the garden center, buy a spray in a green bottle for $18 and spray. And it works for about 3 days. And then you're back, buying the same bottle again. That is not a coincidence. That is a business model. Hydrogen peroxide, used correctly as a foliar spray, is a potent contact treatment for every fungal and bacterial disease I just named, because those diseases are alive. Powdery mildew is a living fungal organism. Rust is a living pathogen. When the oxidizing action of hydrogen peroxide contacts them, it doesn't slow them down. It doesn't weaken them. It destroys their cell walls on contact. One important thing I'll be straight with you about: hydrogen peroxide is a contact treatment. It hits what it touches. It does not travel through the plant's vascular system, so coverage matters enormously. Get the undersides of the leaves, the stems, the crown. Fungal spores hide on the undersides of foliage because they're sheltered from UV light there. If you only spray the tops of leaves, you will miss the problem. Prevention spray: ½ cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide per 1 gallon of water. Use a pump sprayer. Active infection: 8 to 12 tablespoons per gallon, 3 consecutive days. Then rotate to baking soda solution, neem oil, or a sulfur-based spray. That rotation is what actually stops an outbreak. This is why your sticky traps aren't working. If you've ever grown anything in a container, indoors or out, you've dealt with fungus gnats. Those tiny black flies hovering around your soil look harmless. They're not. The adults are annoying. The larvae are the real problem. They live in the top layer of moist soil and feed on organic matter and on plant roots. In a container with a young seedling, a fungus gnat larval infestation can look exactly like root rot: wilting, yellowing, failure to thrive. People buy sticky traps. Sticky traps catch adults. They do absolutely nothing about the larvae in the soil. Nothing. A hydrogen peroxide soil trench wipes out fungus gnat larvae. That oxygen burst kills them on contact. The adults die off within a generation because there are no viable eggs to replace them. Mix 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 4 parts water. Let the top inch of soil dry first. You want the larvae near the surface and active. Then drench thoroughly. You'll see fizzing. That fizzing is the reaction working. Apply every 5 to 7 days for 2 to 3 weeks until you see no more adults emerging. For aphids and spider mites, the same preventative foliar spray, ½ cup per gallon, creates surface conditions that soft-bodied insects find hostile. Hydrogen peroxide is caustic to their exoskeletons on direct contact. As a regular preventative, it makes your garden a far less attractive target. This explains something that's been confusing gardeners for years. Have you ever noticed how your plants explode with new growth after a heavy rainstorm? Not a drizzle, a real downpour. You probably assumed it was just the water. Here's what's actually happening. Rainwater, especially during thunderstorms, contains dissolved oxygen and trace amounts of hydrogen peroxide. Lightning activity creates ozone and peroxides in the atmosphere that get carried to Earth in the rain. Plants evolved in an environment where periodic peroxide-enhanced rain was completely natural. When you add hydrogen peroxide to your watering routine at low concentrations, the 4 tablespoon per liter maintenance drench, you're replicating exactly what a good rainstorm does naturally. The oxygen released in the soil stimulates root growth. Roots in an oxygen-rich environment are more active, more metabolically efficient, and better at pulling in nutrients. This is especially critical for containers, where soil compaction over time is almost inevitable. If you have a plant that seems to plateau, growing but never thriving, low oxygen compacted soil is one of the first things I'd investigate. Most gardeners have never heard of this, and it's one of the most effective things you can do. Think about every seed you've ever planted that just sat there. You waited 2 weeks, nothing. 3 weeks, still nothing. You dug around and found the seed swollen, intact, but not germinating. One of the most common and least discussed causes, surface contamination on the seed itself. Seeds packaged commercially can carry surface bacteria and mold spores. In the warm, moist environment of a germination tray, those organisms can outcompete the embryo before it ever gets a chance to establish. A pre-soak in diluted hydrogen peroxide does 2 things. First, it sterilizes the seed surface. The oxidation reaction kills bacteria and mold spores on the seed coat without damaging the embryo inside. Second, it softens the seed coat. Seeds have a hard outer layer designed to survive dormancy. A peroxide soak accelerates the softening process. The embryo accesses moisture faster, and germination speed improves meaningfully. The soak? 1 to 1.5 teaspoons of 3% hydrogen peroxide per cup of water. Soak no more than 30 minutes. Plant immediately after.
Your tools are spreading disease, and you don't know it. That pruning shear you used on a rose with black spot last Tuesday, if you didn't sanitize it before touching the next plant, you spread the pathogen. That pot you used last season that had a plant die from root rot, if you just rinsed it out and added fresh soil, the pathogen is still on the inside wall, waiting. Hydrogen peroxide is one of the most effective and least toxic sanitizers available for garden equipment. It kills bacteria, viruses, mold spores, and fungal pathogens on contact. Cutting tools. Wipe the blade with undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide between cuts when working with diseased plants. Pots and containers. Fill or spray with a 1-to-1 solution of 3% peroxide and water. Let sit 10 minutes, then rinse. Greenhouse surfaces. A stronger solution applied with a pump sprayer and wiped down will disinfect benches, trays, and walls before the growing season. Compare this to bleach, the other common disinfectant. Bleach works, but it leaves chlorine residue that harms plant roots, corrodes metal tools, and cannot be used near plants. Hydrogen peroxide leaves nothing behind. Section 8, Use Number 7, Sterilizing and Reusing Growing Medium. Stop buying new potting soil every single season out of fear of what might be in the old stuff. Old potting mix, especially from containers where a plant died, can carry dormant fungal spores, insect eggs, harmful nematodes, and bacterial colonies that will attack whatever you plant next. But you don't have to throw it away. You have to sterilize it. A single hydrogen peroxide drench of that soil before replanting destroys those pathogens, not reduces, destroys. Mix 1 cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide per gallon of water. Drench the growing medium thoroughly. The solution needs to reach through the entire volume. Let it sit 24 to 48 hours before planting. By then, the peroxide has completely broken down into water and oxygen, which is actually a benefit, not a neutral state. This is especially relevant if you're starting seeds indoors, repotting container plants, or working with soil from uncertain sources. Section 9, Use Number 8, Enhancing Hydroponic and Aquaponic Systems. For those of you growing hydroponically, and I'm seeing more of this in this community every year, hydrogen peroxide isn't just useful, it's practically essential. Here's the challenge with hydroponic setups. The water is warm, nutrient-dense, and recirculating. That's the ideal environment for algae, biofilm, and root rot pathogens, particularly Pythium, which thrives in warm, low-oxygen water. Adding hydrogen peroxide to your reservoir keeps the water oxygen saturated. The free oxygen released as the peroxide breaks down raises dissolved oxygen levels, exactly what root systems need in a hydroponic environment. Simultaneously, the oxidizing action prevents algae from colonizing reservoir walls, tubing, and root chambers. Maintenance rate: 2 to 3 milliliters of 3% hydrogen peroxide per liter of reservoir water, added fresh every 3 to 5 days. Consistent low-level maintenance, not large periodic doses. Critical warning: never add hydrogen peroxide to a reservoir that contains beneficial bacteria inoculants or mycorrhizal products. Peroxide does not distinguish between harmful and beneficial organisms. Plan your applications accordingly. Section 10. Use number 9. Protecting wounded trees. Trees are the long game. A mistake with an annual costs you a season. A mistake with a tree can cost you a decade or the tree. Damaged trees, hit by storms, lawnmower strikes, drought stress, or improper pruning, are vulnerable to bacterial and fungal infection, exactly at the wound site. Fire blight in apples and pears, canker diseases in stone fruits, crown gall in roses and fruit trees. These infections often begin where the tree was already hurt. Hydrogen peroxide applied carefully to a fresh wound reduces the pathogen load at that site meaningfully. It won't cure a systemic tree disease, I'll never pretend otherwise, but as a first response to a fresh wound or an unsterilized pruning cut, a surface application of 3% hydrogen peroxide buys the tree protection while its natural wound sealing process begins. Spray or wipe the wound, let it dry, and monitor over the following weeks. If you see fungal growth, discoloration spreading from the wound, or mushy bark, apply again and consult an arborist.
Step 1. Using pruning shears sterilized with undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide, cut away every dark, mushy root. Don't be timid. An infected root left attached will continue spreading the pathogen to healthy tissue. Step 2. Prepare a bath 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 2 to 3 parts water in a clean container. Submerge the remaining healthy roots for 5 to 10 minutes. You'll see fizzing. That's the oxidation reaction destroying pathogens on the root surface and oxygenating the cells. Step 3. Pat the roots dry gently with a clean towel. Repot into a fresh, well-draining growing medium. Not the same soil, fresh soil. You just clean those roots, putting them back into infected soil wastes everything you just did. Step 4. First watering, use a mild drench at 4 tablespoons per liter to disinfect the new soil and give recovering roots an oxygen boost. Step 5. Exercise restraint going forward. The #1 cause of root rot is overwatering. Let the soil dry meaningfully between. Step 1. Using pruning shears sterilized with undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide, cut away every dark, mushy root. Don't be timid. An infected root left attached will continue spreading the pathogen to healthy tissue. Step 2. Prepare a bath 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 2 to 3 parts water in a clean container. Submerge the remaining healthy roots for 5 to 10 minutes. You'll see fizzing. That's the oxidation reaction destroying pathogens on the root surface and oxygenating the cells. Step 3. Pat the roots dry gently with a clean towel. Repot into a fresh, well-draining growing medium. Not the same soil, fresh soil. You just clean those roots, putting them back into infected soil wastes everything you just did. Step 4. First watering, use a mild drench at 4 tablespoons per liter to disinfect the new soil and give recovering roots an oxygen boost. Step 5. Exercise restraint going forward. The #1 cause of root rot is overwatering. Let the soil dry meaningfully between waterings. Feel the weight of the container. If it's light, water. If it still feels heavy, wait. Don't push fertilizer on a plant in recovery. Give the roots time to function first. Section 12. Safety and honest trade-offs. Is it safe on vegetables? Yes, completely. Hydrogen peroxide breaks down into water and oxygen. There is no toxic residue, no chemical that persists in plant tissue or soil. Unlike many synthetic fungicides and insecticides, it has no pre-harvest interval. You can apply it and harvest the same day without concern. That's not a marketing claim, that's chemistry. Does it affect beneficial soil organisms? This is a real trade-off, and I want to be honest about it. At maintenance concentrations of 4 tablespoons per liter, the impact on beneficial soil biology is minimal and temporary. At higher concentrations used for severe root rot, you are making a deliberate choice. Sacrifice some of the microbial community to save the plant. After a heavy treatment, support recovery of beneficial soil biology by adding compost, a mycorrhizal inoculant, or a compost tea drench in the following weeks. Think of it like a medical intervention. Sometimes you accept a side effect to address a more serious problem.
That bottle in your medicine cabinet costs $1.50. The treatments at the garden center that solve the same problems cost $15, $20, sometimes $30 every season, every year, forever. The math isn't complicated, it just took someone saying it out loud. Before you go, drop your USDA hardiness zone or your state in the comments right now. Not your city, just your zone. I read everyone. I use that to decide what we cover next because what's happening in Louisiana in August is a completely different story from what's happening in Oregon in April. If someone in your life is replacing dead plants every season and spending money on treatments that aren't working, this video is the thing to send them. The information in it will change how they garden. See you in the next one.